What's going on YouTube? So the Lexus LX has always been one of the most unique offerings in the flagship luxury world, since it has major off-road chops hiding underneath of its flashy skin. Now for 2020, Lexus is pushing the on-road package further by introducing a new sport package and several other nice upgrades. Of course, we do especially thank our good friends at Lexus of Lexington for giving us access to this loaded LX. And if you're in the market for any new Lexus, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's check out the latest flagship Lexus SUV. So starting things off here with the exterior styling. The main version of the LX continues to offer the same design for 2020. As you can see, it is incredibly bold, and there is little to no chance that someone will mistake this for anything but a Lexus. However, for those of you who want to go bolder still, the new sport package replaces the slatted grille with a black mesh one that looks similar to what other Lexus models call F-Sport. But regardless of grille choice, completing the look are standard triple beam full LED headlights, which are made from 3 main crystals with a signature arrowhead daytime running light encompassing them. You will also find headlamp washers and LED fog lights along the bottom. As far as ground clearance, right now this is in its standard air suspension setup, but it can go up or down by quite a bit. But getting back to the rest of the styling, it soldiers on with the same look as last year. But once again, the sport package would add a unique finish to the lower bumper area. My favorite thing about the rear continues to be the tail lights, which are fully LED and have a very cool 3D look to them. So all in all, the LX's exterior continues to be bold and extravagant looking, and now takes things even further with the new sport package offering. Now of course, no flagship would be complete without large wheels, and these are the optional high contrast 21-inch alloys that almost every single LX comes equipped with. If you can manage to find one without them, the standard option would be the 20-inch web design alloy wheels. And as far as the mirrors, they are of course fully loaded with all the goodies, including the new projection puddle lamp that was added last year. And now the last two things to mention on the outside are towing and safety. For the first, the rating is 7,000 pounds. And for the second, the entire Lexus Safety System Plus is included. That gives the LX pre-collision braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering assist, adaptive cruise control, and auto high beam headlights. But anyways guys, that's it for the bold exterior, so now let's go ahead and check out this flagship cabin. Now walking up to the 2020 LX, of course as you would expect for something of this price tag, you do have standard smart entry. Remote start is also available via the Lexus Enform app or via a key combination on this key fob for 1 year free. Now to get inside the vehicle itself, all you gotta do is just walk up to it, grab the handle since there's a sensor, and your mirrors will electrically fold outward as well. Now looking inside the cabin of the 2020 Lexus LX 570, as you can tell, there's not really been any changes for 2020, but there is one update for color options, and that is a brand new color option being offered with just the sport package only, and that is Moonlight White with a exclusive black headliner and the linear espresso wood. Now this of course is just the regular model. So what we have is either real leather and black or parchment, or when you go for the luxury package, which pretty much every single one of them is going to have. You get upgraded to this beautiful semi-aniline leather with either parchment and open pore walnut, black with dark brown walnut, or this option here, which is the Cabernet with linear espresso wood. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is exquisitely appointed. You've got that same beautiful Cabernet leather mirrored up here, as well as leather that goes all the way up through here. We have the linear espresso, or like I said, there are open pore options available if you prefer that. Naturally, all 4 of our windows are one-touch automatic, and we do have standard 3-person memory seating. As far as the seats themselves, like pretty much every option on this car, it is standard 14-way power adjusting. We do have the power thigh extension, as well as 2-way power lumbar support. And then we have this absolutely wonderful feeling semi-aniline leather, some of the finest you can get in any type of vehicle. And then I really love this color. It's just a beautiful dark red. As far as getting inside here, we do have the standard running boards, and you do have a driver's side assist grip as well. Now, I've been inside this vehicle numerous times since its last refresh in 2016. However, this cabin continues to impress with beautiful materials. So across our upper dash here, we do have a soft touch plastic with a stitching detail. And then dropping down here to the middle, we have generous use of this real wood trim and real aluminum below that. Now, all the lower areas pretty much are covered in this leatherette material. So that goes all the way down here, as well as all through here where your knees would touch, and leads straight into our beautiful armrest here. Now, of course, as you would expect, everything in here fits together amazingly well and is super solid. Now to start the LX, you're just going to press the button. And when you press it, you will find the standard 12.3-inch display fire up. Now, as far as your gauges over here, these do keep the typical, very classy LX design. So they are analog with your 4.2-inch multifunction display in the middle. And this, you can just cycle through all your typical information, including all your various safety systems back here on this last tab. Now, one of the other tabs you'll see in there is the head-up display if you've gone for that option, which we have. So as you can see, this is a nice head-up display. It can contain a lot of different types of information regarding various things, but we just have it on the basic setup right now. Now, coming back to the steering wheel, we actually have old school hydraulic power steering, since this is based on the Land Cruiser, of course. And we also have opted for the optional heated and wood steering wheel, so you can get one that's full leather if you prefer that. Now, as far as your buttons here, these are your typical stuff for your audio, phone, and voice controls. Then on this side for your multifunction display, some of your safety systems, as well as your standard adaptive cruise control. Naturally, your window wipers are rain sensing, and power adjustment for the steering wheel is standard equipment. Now, this is a large SUV, of course, so as you'd expect, you do have pretty good storage. So we'll start out with the center console here. Now, inside you would normally find quite a large amount of storage. However, it's a little bit smaller since we've gone for the optional cool box. Obviously, I don't really need to explain this. You turn that button on, and this will basically act as a cooler, so you can put drinks or something like that in there. So that's a pretty cool feature to have. Up in the front here, we can open that piece of wood up to reveal our 2 cup holders, and we can also extend that out. And when you look in there, you've got a little shelf here. This is a good place to put your phone. Also, you can turn on your Qi wireless phone charging. That is an option. Over here, you have your other USB ports, and then a 12-volt outlet. Now, since this is kind of an old school type of SUV, you still have a old school shifter. Now you can shift manually right here like that, or you can also use the standard paddle shifters. And when you go into reverse, you will also find your standard 360-degree camera system. So it's definitely nice this is included as standard equipment. As you can see, you've got both your traditional view and your 360 view, both with dynamic guidelines, and of course parking sensors. And then while the vehicle is in reverse, the mirrors will tilt down to help you see parking lines easier. And then up in front of that, we do have our electronic parking brake. So now we come to all this. This is where you are reminded that this is actually a very capable and hardcore type of SUV here, being based on the Land Cruiser. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these buttons. That would take like 45 minutes. But I'll point out some of the important stuff here. This is basically where you can control all of your four-wheel drive controls. So we have like crawl mode and stuff like that. This is like for your on-road controls here. So you have normal, sport, sport plus. This is where you're going to control what type of four-wheel drive you want to be using. And this is where you can control your air suspension up or down. Of course, that is also standard equipment. Now off to the side, we have some buttons that are not for the driving, but for the seat. As you can see, this is our 3-stage heating and 3-stage ventilation. That's included in the luxury package. They're both automatic, and they work with what Lexus calls the Climate Concierge 4-zone automatic climate control, part of the luxury package. And that basically just takes in a lot of different information to give you like an overall temperature. So it all works together and just kind of does it automatically, so you just shouldn't have to think too much about it or make adjustments as you go along down the road. Now, as far as the climate control itself, like I just said, it is 4-zone automatic with the luxury package, which almost every single one of them does have. And what I like about this is you actually have this really clean look. It looks like they're touch capacitive buttons, but they're actually not. So you can just adjust them physically like so. And as you notice, all the controls are located right here, and you can also activate your settings there for your Climate Concierge by pressing that. In a similar way, all of your audio controls up here are actually physically rendered, even though they still look very nice. Now, as far as the audio system, we do have the optional Mark Levinson sound system. It is 450 watts and 19 speakers, as opposed to the standard 9-speaker one. So let's go ahead and take a sample of that. Now this song there has a lot of deep bass, so hopefully the microphone could pick that up properly. However, I can assure you one way or the other that this is a phenomenal sounding sound system. Alright, so next thing up the dashboard here is our Lexus Enform system. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look at that. Now here on the 2020 LX, we actually have the older style Lexus Enform system, so it has not been updated to the latest software. However, it does operate pretty much the same way. Now, like most things on this vehicle, it is standard equipment, so you do have standard navigation. And as you can see, since you have the large 12.3-inch display, we do have split screen abilities, so you can have the menu and stuff on one side, as well as this different pane here where you can switch out different stuff. Now, one thing I do want to point out though is that since this does not have the latest Enform software, we actually still do not have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, so that's something to keep in mind if you really are concerned about that. But I'm not going to dig in any deeper than that, since it is, like I said, pretty much the same as we've seen in many Lexus models. However, we do have a dedicated tech help video available for those of you who want to learn more about the system. A link to that video will be provided in the description. Now, of course, as you would expect, we do have a frameless auto-dimming mirror with your 3 HomeLink universal remotes built into the bottom of it. We also continue to have our touch-sensitive lighting, which is pretty cool. And, of course, we do have a standard moonroof. Now, this is just a standard size unit. There is not a panoramic one offered at this time. But all in all, I have to say this cabin in the 2020 LX continues to impress me year after year. It's just such a lovely place to spend time. It's beautifully executed, and it just reminds you why this is worth its nearly 6-figure price tag. Alrighty, so that does it for the front areas. However, in a 3-row crossover, the back areas are just as important. So now I'll go ahead and give it off to Mason, who will check those out. Alrighty, so heading around to the second row of the 2020 Lexus LX, you will continue to find an extremely opulent space as you would have last year. This is actually one of the nicest rear seats that you can get in any car in this class. Now, as far as how the rear seats are concerned, like spec-wise, you're going to find 36 inches of rear legroom and 39 inches of rear headroom, which does put it on par with most of the competition. Now, turning over to the door trim itself, as you would expect out of a flagship luxury vehicle, it is very nice. So we do have leather going across this bottom portion, as well as above it. We even have some more of that beautiful wood trim. And up top, we do have standard rear window sunshades. Of course, your window is fully automatic, and you do have a bottle storage as well as a little storage compartment beside that. Now, turning over to the seat itself, it is a lovely design. It's made of that same semi-aniline leather that feels fantastic. And one of the LX's coolest features is that it actually has a power sliding second row, which is a really, really nice feature. Very, very few cars have this, and the LX does have that standard equipment. Now to get in, just step on the running boards, grab the handle, and it is quite easy. Now here in the center area, you will find a few features. However, this is not where the main controls are. So we do have 2 vents here in the center, and down below that, we have a little piece of wood, as well as a 12-volt power outlet. However, the main control panel actually is in this fold-down armrest, so you just fold it down, and it will reveal a lot of your controls for this. So the LX does have standard 4-zone climate control, so all I have to do is adjust the temperature for each rear passenger. So you can just adjust the temperature here, as well as your zones and automatic function. And you will also notice off to the side that we do have 3-stage heated seats, as well as 3-stage ventilated seats, and they are automatic as well, and the ventilation is included in the luxury package. However, the heating is standard. Now behind that, we do have a little storage compartment. And up top, we do have a absolutely lovely headliner. It's a very, very premium material. We have some LED lighting, as well as another vent, an assist grip, and a coat hook. Now, as far as rear legroom is concerned, this is on par with most in the class. So behind rear seating position, I have about 5 to 6 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat. Now, heading around to the third row itself, all you have to do to get in is look at this little lever, push it, it does fold the seat, and then it does also lift it out of the way since it is hydraulically assisted. Now, looking at the third row itself, you will find 28 inches of rear legroom and 36 inches of rear headroom, which does make it a little bit smaller than some of the rivals, and it is worth noting that there is not a long wheelbase version in some of the competition that you might be looking at, like the Escalade.
It is also worth noting before we get back here that not all LXs will have the third row. You can actually get a 2-row version that is significantly cheaper. However, you are limited in the amount of options that you can buy on that 2-row model. So if you want a fully loaded one, you're going to have to go for the 3-row. But now let's go ahead and get back here and see what it's like. So my first impression back here, legroom is actually pretty good. So I have about maybe an inch of rear legroom, and my feet can slide up under the seat about halfway, so it's not too bad. The thigh support though is a little bit lacking. I've been in better in the class. However, it's really not that bad for this class of vehicle. A lot of them, especially the body and frame SUVs, are not that great. So this is pretty much average. We do have 2 cup holders, an assist grip, rear vents, as well as some more LED lighting. Now heading around to the tailgate. Of course, a power tailgate is standard equipment. However, it is worth noting that there is not a hands-free function on this LX. And it is also a very unique tailgate in the fact that it opens in 2 parts. So in order to open the top part, all you have to do is locate this little button under the lever, the lid, and it does open right up. And then in order to open the bottom portion, you just grab this little handle, yank it, and it does fall right down. Now once inside the trunk of the LX, you are going to find a good amount of space for its class, although it is a little bit smaller than its main rivals like the Escalade. You'll find 16 cubic feet of space behind the third row seats. It expands to 43 cubic feet if you fold them, and then it goes all the way up to 82 cubic feet if you fold all of the seats. Now like I mentioned, that is a lot smaller than some of the rivals like the Escalade. And it is also worth noting that there is not a long wheelbase version, so you're definitely not going to be as big as like an Escalade ESV. Now, if a massive amount of space isn't your biggest priority, Lexus does finish it very nicely back here, so you're definitely going to be happy. So you do have a household style outlet back here for tailgating. And off to the side, we have some LED lighting, as well as your buttons to power fold the third row. Now, this is also a very unique process in typical LX fashion, so all you have to do is push these 2 little buttons. It does fold the seats right down. This one had a little bit of trouble, but there you go. And it does fold right down. And then, so if you can option to leave it like this. However, it actually has a mechanism that will fold it up and out of the way. So in order to finish the process, you just push this. And they do fold up and out of the way on these sides. Now in order to fold the tailgate up, you just push it up, and it does have a soft close mechanism that will suck it in. And then you just push the button. Now we will talk about the pricing in just a minute. And coming over to the passenger seat, of course it is power adjusting standard equipment. And of course you have beautiful materials in front of the passenger, a leather covered glove box, and opening it up, it is good sized. It's not a massive amount of space, but it does go back quite a distance. And up top we do have a nice sun visor with an LED light and mirror. And it does also detach as well as extend. And I do also want to point out, this and the Land Cruiser are one of the very few cars that has like a 2-part sun visor. So say the sun's kind of over here, and in the front, you can fold it over, and then you have another sun visor to block the sun here. So you're completely blocked. This is a really nice feature, and very few cars have that. But anyway, guys, that sums up all the practical stuff about this LX. So now let's go ahead and get on the road and see how this off-road capable vehicle handles on the day-to-day road.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and talk about this car's powertrain. Now, of course, it does continue to offer kind of an old school 5.7 liter V8 engine that continues to produce 383 horsepower and 403 pound-feet of torque, so definitely very healthy numbers. And it continues to be paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission and permanent full-time 4-wheel drive. Now lastly, there is of course the issue of fuel economy. If you care anything about it, this would never be on your list, I doubt. So our ratings are 12 city, 16 highway, 14 combined, which is just about as bad as anything can possibly get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but like I said, if that was something you were concerned about, you wouldn't really be looking at a 3-row luxury SUV of any sort. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and head out on the road. Alright, so first taking off here in the 2020 Lexus LX 570. Definitely we have plenty of power. This is mechanically related to the Land Cruiser that we just drove
about a month ago.
About a month ago. So of course, in the same way that operated, we do have just this big burly V8 on board. Just gives it a it's naturally aspirated, so we have instant power. Not to mention just a great sound.
Oh yeah.
That's missing.
That's what people want
from a lot of these small turbo engines that are oftentimes these competitors can come with nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking like a German rival like the X7 or GLS.
I just kind of hit a couple sewer manholes. This vehicle really just takes it so well. Versus the Land Cruiser, it is important to remember that this comes with an air suspension. So, while I probably will still say the words old school many times during this test drive, it's not the same level of old school as the Land Cruiser. It does feel different. One of those things is the ride is smoother, and the way that it kind of handles things. I can definitely tell that so far it's been a lot less bouncy.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little bit more buttoned down.
It behaves more like a traditional large luxury 3-row. Like an Escalade. If you got in an Escalade and then got in a Land Cruiser, you'd be like, what is going on? But this kind of behaves pretty much like those other cars. And it is worth noting that with the air suspension, that road we were just on is so rough, and we've been on it in 100 different cars, so we definitely know that it's a rough road, and it almost makes you forget about how rough it is, just this car being that smooth and comfortable.
Yeah, power in this is really just effortless, and it just comes on so smoothly. It's very refined as well. Lexus, they've been making this 5.7 liter V8 for a long time. And they're always known for having buttery smooth, naturally aspirated engines, and this is no exception.
But that right there, I think that's a really good example of just how isolated this car is. I personally could not hear the ambulance. before I saw it sitting right there. You know, it is so quiet in here. I mean, there was a fire truck and an ambulance come right out of there, and I couldn't hear anything at all. And we don't have the music on. We have nothing. It is dead silent in here, and you still couldn't hear it. You know, that is really a testament to just how good this car is at what people want it to be. You know, because when you buy a luxury 3-row, you expect it to have that level of refinement, and this car definitely delivers.
This sounds really, really
Yeah.
nice when you get on the throttle. Gotta love the way this sounds.
You know, another thing I kind of want to discuss, just kind of cruising down the road, is just how commanding of a presence you have in this car. I know that's something that a lot of people look for in these large luxury 3-rows, and you're definitely going to have it in the LX. You know, we are just in the standard height suspension, so I guess theoretically we could bump it up to an even taller mode and look down more on people. But it really does give you that commanding presence. You know, the cars, you know, most of the cars you pass, you know, they barely come up to the bottom of your window, and you're like, wow, I'm bigger than everyone else. So it does give you that nice view.
And if you've ever had one of these behind you, there's just really nothing like seeing that big mouth right behind you. It looks like something's absolutely about to swallow you up. It really doesn't get more intimidating than this. And, you know, more often than not, like you said, that's really what owners, they're looking for. That's part of what they want to see in a vehicle like this, is just kind of being intimidating, having that sense of presence when they show up.
That engine just has such a growl to it.
It really does. Now, one thing I do want to discuss, I think this is a very important benefit over the Land Cruiser, because it was probably my single biggest complaint about it while we were driving it. Nosedive.
Oh, yeah.
This, while they share the same bones, the air suspension really takes care of the nosedive. I mean, there's still some there. This is huge. This is like over 6,000 pounds, I believe. But much, much better. It's within kind of the normal bounds of what you'd expect for a 3-row. Whereas the Land Cruiser was kind of exceptionally... I've never driven anything that had as much nosedive and tail dive. So that really, to me, just feels a lot safer, a lot more secure.
Yeah.
And I do prefer that, since even though we do have all this capability, realistically speaking, pretty much everyone is going to drive this on road exclusively. So I like to see that the road behavior and road manners is improved. But all in all, the Lexus LX certainly does a great job at being a supremely luxurious and also very capable SUV. You know, I don't personally think that many people that buy this are going to ever take it off-road, but, I mean, you have to admit that versus something else in the class, having this is definitely a benefit that none of the other competitors can match. But I do also like, I think more importantly, that you don't really sacrifice anything in the way that this drives versus the competition for that capability. So certainly accomplishes everything that it sets out to do.
Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for the 2020 LX. Now, as I mentioned in my part of the video, there is a 2-row option, and like I said, it is quite a bit cheaper than the 3-row option, but the thing to consider is that you can't get it fully loaded like the 3-row, so if you want all the options and the goodies, you're going to have to get the 3-row. But with that said, if you want the 2-row option, that's going to be $86,380, which is quite a bit cheaper than the 3-row at $91,380. Now we have opted for that 3-row, and we do also have pretty much every option selected. So we have the wireless charger for $75, the cool box for $170, the 21-inch 10-spoke alloy wheels for $745, head-up display for $900, the luxury package for $1190, the Mark Levinson audio system for $2,350, the heated espresso steering wheel for $150, the all-weather floor liners with cargo mat for $393, the cargo mat and cargo wheel locks, $260, and then finally we have the destination charge of $1,295. And this particular model, as equipped, comes in at $98,928, which is definitely not cheap. But it is worth noting that, you know, this car's main competitors is like a Range Rover, and honestly, I don't think this is any more expensive than that. I think the Range Rover is going to be more expensive.
Escalade, Navigator.
It's right in line.
This is what this type of vehicle costs, one way or the other.
Well guys, we've enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the 2020 Lexus LX 570. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.